morning, everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar is all about the secrets of Aussie online entrepreneurs. My name is Sarah Gonzalez, and I will be your facilitator for today's session. So today we're talking all about inspiration. It's all about hearing how ordinary people with ordinary lives are turning simple ideas into extraordinary businesses by simply following their passion. Today we're very fortunate to be joined by two very inspiring people. Our host, Bernadette Schwerdt, will interview Simon Griffiths, Young Australian of the Year finalist and founder of Who Gives a Crap, an internet-based social enterprise company. She will be asking him all the hard-hitting questions on how he used a phenomenally successful crowdfunding campaign to raise money to create a new, environmentally friendly toilet paper for the developing world. So a little bit of a different webinar today. And Bernadette is the director of the Australian School of Copywriting and also the host of Secrets to Aussie Online Entrepreneurs, an online video series for the Fairfax TV network. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome you to Bernadette and Simon. How are you both this morning?
Thank you, Sarah. Very well, thank you. And it's a bit sad you haven't been out today. I'm wondering how your vitamin D levels are.
I know.
Well, I'm in Melbourne and it's looking a bit sunny but a little bit overcast too. So look, welcome everybody and thank you for joining us, and thank you, Simon, also for your time today. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Oh, it's good to be here, yeah.
Well, let me tell everybody how I came across our guest today, Simon. I was watching a webinar on crowdfunding a while back, and the host of the webinar drew our attention to a campaign that was going absolutely ballistic at the time, mainly because Simon was doing something very unusual on this video, which we'll see in a moment. But it actually wasn't so much the video and the fact it had gone viral that was of interest to me, even though that was interesting. It was really because of the product he was selling and why he had created it and how he was selling it. That was so interesting to me. And so I thought he'd make a great guest for our online video series, The Secrets of Aussie Online Entrepreneurs, but I thought he'd make a great interview guest for our webinar today, because his story is about how one person was able to set up a business in a very crowded marketplace, in a very competitive industry dominated by multinationals, very, very well-resourced multinationals, let me add, and he's made it very successful on a very limited budget. So I think anyone in business would be interested to hear how someone did that. Now, not only has he created this amazing product that's going gangbusters, he's also established a bar here in Melbourne, which I believe is one of Melbourne's first not-for-profit bars, which is actually a very interesting concept in itself. It's called Shebeen, and it's getting a lot of airplay, a lot of media coverage here in Melbourne, and we'll hear more about that also. So to me, Simon is at the forefront of what's known as consumer-driven philanthropy, which is where consumers are offered the choice of buying goods where the profits are used to improve the lives of people in the developing world. Now, this is a really interesting development in business, and it's one I'm certain we'll hear more of in the future. So let's go back to the start, really, and hear how Simon got these ventures off the ground. So firstly, again, thank you, Simon, for joining us today. Let's talk a bit about your company, Who Gives a Crap, which is a great title in and of itself, and how it got started.
Well, so the actual kind of concept initially, or kind of how we went about kicking it off and getting it off the ground? What are you interested in?
I'd like to hear it from the very beginning.
Well, it actually kind of came off the back of Shebeen in some ways, because Shebeen was all about sending profits to the developing world from the sales of alcohol or food or whatever we were selling at the bar. And Shebeen, I guess, was kind of a bit of a crazy idea when we first started thinking about it. No one in the world had ever done anything like that before. And it slowly sort of became, closer to reality, and then eventually got to the point where we realized that it was no longer just a harebrained scheme, but something that was actually going to happen. And so I guess, I kind of naturally started thinking about what you could do to improve on the Shebeen model and what its limitations were, and realized that, as a bar, there's only a limited number of people that you can reach every single day, because, well, first of all, not everyone drinks. Second of all, not everyone wants to drink some of the strange kind of products that we sell, because we only sell products from the developing world. And thirdly, not everyone will fit inside a bricks and mortar establishment. And so we had to, I guess I became sort of really interested in looking at what sort of mass market products we could work with in order to reach potentially every single Australian or every single person in the developed world. And I was thinking about this for some time, and then one day I walked into the bathroom and saw a six-pack of toilet paper sitting there, and had that kind of quarter-second epiphany where I realized that that it was all about toilet paper. We could work with sanitation in the developing world and call the product Who Gives a Crap. And I called 3 friends, and they all said, that's an awesome idea. You've got to run with it. And that's kind of how it all got started.
Right. And so tell us a little bit about your background, Simon, because you were an engineer and you were an economist, and you spent some time in developing worlds, but you found that one man trying to make a difference was limited. So maybe just take us a step back and how you got involved with the whole concept of consumer-driven philanthropy.
So I I moved from Perth to Melbourne to study engineering and economics at the University of Melbourne, and I guess, I kind of half joke that it didn't really take me long to figure out that it was cheaper to spend all of my university holidays in the developing world rather than in going back to Perth to see my family, because the cost of flights were about the same, and the cost of living is obviously so much lower in the developing world. And so I kind of almost by accident spent 3 or 4 months of every year living, traveling, and doing volunteer work in different parts of Southeast Asia and eventually sort of South and Central America and Africa as well. And like every student, I kind of got towards the end of my degree and started thinking about what I could do career-wise. And I loved problem solving and innovation and working with markets, which are kind of what I've been trained to do at university. And so I set my sights on a consulting firm called McKinsey & Company that kind of does all of that sort of stuff. And eventually kind of got this, dream job offer on the table where McKinsey said, come and work for us, we'd love to have you. And I guess at that point, I'd, worked really hard towards this offer. So it was the first time I'd sort of actually taken a step back and thought about what I'd done to date and what my life had meant to date. And I realized that there was still this very strong pull back to the developing world. And that was for me, because I actually wanted to solve social problems and not just business problems. And so I ended up turning the dream job offer down, and I moved to South Africa, where I worked on the ground with a development aid organization for a few months before kind of getting incredibly frustrated because my skill set was kind of really undervalued, and I was really limited in the number of people that I could work with and impact on a daily basis. And so I ended up kind of leaving that organization and starting to think about kind of, what I wanted to do next, and could see that there was this huge funding problem for organizations that were creating social impact, whether they were NGOs or social enterprises or whatever. And I guess got to, this realization that instead of everyone competing against each other for essentially a limited pool of funds that come from the philanthropy market, there was an opportunity to create a new funding channel that was just based around getting people to do what they do every single day as a consumer, and using the profits from our everyday purchases to create social impact. So that's kind of how the initial, headline concept came about, and from there, into Shebeen and eventually the Who Gives a Crap concept.
That's great. So with the toilet paper, obviously you knew you were going into a very crowded marketplace dominated by these multinationals. What were some of the challenges you faced in getting this idea off the ground?
One of the tricky things of working with toilet paper is that it's a mass market product, so it's really high volume but very low margin, and as a result, you get basically huge minimum orders are necessary in order to bring the price point down to a level where you can be competitive. And so we had to first of all figure out whether there was enough demand for what we were doing in order to kind of invest both our time but also our money into the concept. And second of all, make sure that once we placed that minimum order, we weren't going to end up with, toilet paper kind of crowding our lounge rooms for the next 2 years because we couldn't get rid of it. And so we had to basically, figure out, first of all, where to get the capital from. Second of all, how to build our initial customer base so that we could kind of solve both of those problems at the same time. And that's where crowdfunding came in for us.
Good. So for those on the line, Simon, who aren't familiar with crowdfunding, can you give us a little overview of how that works?
Well, basically, you're going out to initially, I guess, friends and family asking for them to kind of support what you're doing by giving you money. And in our case, it was in exchange for products who are essentially pre-selling toilet paper. And then if you can really kind of push what you're doing and get good PR around it, you start to be able to... Sorry, I'm in my home office today and my cat's on the table knocking water off the table.
Well, at least we know you've got a home office.
Yeah, I'll introduce him quickly. This is our cat, Gustav.
Hello, Gustav. Gorgeous.
But anyway, so the idea is that then if you can start to leverage PR and reach an audience outside your immediate friends and family, you can obviously attract a greater amount of funding. And for us, we knew that was what we had to do because we didn't have enough friends and family to buy $50,000 worth of toilet paper before it was actually produced.
Cool. So you use the platform of Indiegogo, which is the American platform for crowdfunding. And before we're going to watch the video that Simon created, because as you'll see, it obviously caused a stir. Is there anything you'd like to say before we watch the video, Simon?
I guess, just giving it some background, we realized that we were working with a product that, when we first started kind of looking at crowdfunding as an option, there'd been only a very small number of projects that had successfully crowdfunded, very serious amounts of money. And we looked at what they'd done and realized that you had to sort of have this sense of urgency, but also, an amazing kind of product that people wanted to get behind because it was something that was, I guess, kind of revolutionary and groundbreaking. But we didn't have a revolutionary, groundbreaking product in the way that many people do. We're trying to sell toilet paper. And so we realized that we kind of needed some special sauce to really kind of make it newsworthy and shareable. And that's kind of what this campaign video was all about.
I reckon that's a great entree or segue into the video, Sarah. So are you able to maybe load that up for us?
Absolutely. So I'm just going to load the video that we're going to watch, and it's going to stream live from YouTube. Just before we do, can I make sure that everyone has the volume turned up on their computer? And also within the web conference. So you'll see I'm just highlighting underneath the chat box a little speaker there. Just make sure that you click that and that there's no cross on top of that megaphone, and then you'll be able to hear the video. So we're just going to play Simon's video now.
Hi, I'm Simon Griffiths, co-founder of Who Gives a Crap. We reckon every trip to the bathroom should be a feel-good experience. So we've spent the last 2 years developing the only toilet paper that delivers one every time. Who Gives a Crap? It's a breakthrough on so many levels. Let me take you through them. It's better for the environment, and we've cut the nasties, so it's better for your body. That feels good. But unlike other recycled toilet paper, we're all about comfort. So it has a beautiful fluffy texture and low PTR, or poke-through rate. That feels good. You can choose to buy it off the shelf or have it home delivered. Either way, it costs the same as other brands, but comes with 1,200% more puns. That feels good. But here's where we're really on a roll. 50% of our profits go to sanitation projects in the developing world. You see, while a trip to the bathroom can be the ultimate feel-good experience for some, for many, it's not, because 2.4 billion people don't have access to a proper toilet. The bad stuff ends up in waterways, causing diseases that fill half the hospital beds in the developing world. That doesn't feel very good. And that's why we're donating 50% of our profits to WaterAid. WaterAid helped the world's poorest people access clean water, sanitation, and hygiene education. They're literally saving the world from the bottom up. It's as simple as that. We take something that everybody needs and use the proceeds to help people in need. And that feels really good. Heading up Who Gives a Crap, Jehan Ratnatunga in LA, Danny Alexander in New York, and myself down in Melbourne, Australia. We're engineers and product designers who in 2010, through a shared passion for humanitarian aid and toilet humour, developed a business model that grabbed a lot of headlines and won a bunch of awards for entrepreneurship. We're busting to press go on the first production run and create Who Gives a Crap's first edition. Our feel-good toilet paper needs a feel-good price. And for that, we have to order in bulk. But we need $50,000 to make that happen. Basically, we need toilet paper. And like anyone who's waiting for toilet paper, we need someone to help us out. We're asking for your support. We need $50,000 to fill our warehouse with the first bulk order of Who Gives a Crap. And I won't be leaving this toilet until we've raised enough for our first order. I'm sitting down for what I believe in, and I'm not getting up until I've got some toilet paper. $50,000 worth. Till then, you can jump on our website and see me sitting right here on our live feed. So please, bit of help.
Okay, Sarah, are we back on the line?
And there we go. Great. So now we're going to go back to the slideshow.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. As you can see, a very amusing, very beautifully produced video. Simon, this obviously caused a big stir. I'm just curious, as an actor, as a producer of various films and short films and videos, how long did it take you to write that script?
Well, we actually, I guess when we were forming the company, we incubated in the United States at a social enterprise incubator called the Unreasonable Institute, and we were kind of really pushed outside of our comfort zone and into a lot of kind of pitching environments where we'd have to produce 5 to 7 minute long pitches. And so a lot of this script actually was kind of all of the jokes and puns and different bits and pieces that we'd put together into our pitch that then came together in the final video. So I think what was really hard was we first of all kind of went outside of what we were comfortable with and what we knew, and tried to produce something that was totally unique and something that we hadn't done before, and then found that we kind of already had all of the bits and pieces that we need. So we spent a few days kind of faffing about before we eventually just kind of said, no, actually, let's just do what we know works well. And then the script came together in literally a matter of hours. But obviously there was a lot of kind of, the actual shoot took a full day, and then there was a lot of kind of cutting to get it down to, I think, 2.5 minutes, because it was originally about four or so minutes long.
And what other skill sets did you have at your disposal in terms of creating this video? Because I know people are interested who are on the line today about viral videos. Did you have a director of photography? Did you have a director? Did you have an editor? Or how did you actually bring the team together?
Well, my original founder, Jahan, is actually a YouTube micro-celebrity. So he's incredibly well-known in Sri Lanka because he's Sri Lankan and writes YouTube videos about being Sri Lankan. And so he's very experienced in script writing. And he also now does strategy for YouTube, so is very familiar with kind of the YouTube platform. But to be honest, it was his experience was really great when it came to the actual script writing piece. But the people that helped us the most were actually Naked Communications, that were an ad firm that was very interested in what we were doing and helped us kind of, with our go-to-market strategy and to figure out how to make something like this work. And so Naked put us in touch with an amazing producer in Melbourne called Robin Gerards-Gill, who runs RGG Creative, which is a production house that basically brings in all of the people that are needed in order to create content like that. And Robin, just loved the concept, and it really resonated with him and what he was doing. And so he, brought in, a DOP and kind of everyone that we needed to kind of bring the idea to life, including special effects and a few other bits and pieces as well. So we worked with a very talented and experienced team to produce the video, and we're kind of very fortunate to have all of those incredible people working with us.
So it's there's a lot of time and effort on that screen in those 2 minutes, because I think a lot of, if people ever do look through the crowdfunding platforms, they'll see a whole range of videos ranging from very amateur, filmed on a phone, right through to yours, which I would say is very highly produced and highly professional. So any thoughts for people who might be looking to create some kind of video to make it go viral? Obviously you've got a unique selling point, but any tips for those who just selling a regular product?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is that you definitely don't need to have a video that's got the level of production that we did. But again, because we were working with, toilet paper, we felt that there was kind of this perception of quality that would come through the video. And so if it was shot on a handheld camera and was, relatively shaky and had a low production value, then it could really reflect badly on our product. And so we felt that given the products that we were working with, we actually had to produce something that was a much higher level of, of production than some of the other successful videos that you'd see. And then the other piece was that we really needed it to go viral because obviously, my ass was literally on the line. And if it didn't go viral, then I could have ended up, sitting on a toilet for a week, which wouldn't have been a good outcome. So
the stakes were high.
Exactly, the stakes are very high.
There's one thing I've learned in life is that there are three things you don't compromise on in terms of quality. One of those is Glad wrap, garbage bags, and toilet paper. So in a way, it was great that you knew that was one of the things you had to overcome. Was if people saw this cheap video, they think, well, the toilet paper is probably pretty cheap. So no matter how good the cause, they weren't about to buy it because they thought, I just can't use it.
Yeah, exactly. And the final piece of it as well was that the way that most videos hit their kind of virality in, I think, day 3, and we didn't have that luxury up our sleeves, so to speak. We needed it to go viral much more quickly than that. So that was kind of what the way that we produced it was all kind of built around that initial 24 hours being so incredibly important for us. So, in terms of tips, in terms of, creating something that has that viral capacity, the two things that we really learned and took away from it are the importance of creating something that's newsworthy so that people are interested and want to write about it, and it's something that they haven't heard or seen before. But then probably, most important is then creating something that is shareable so that people want to share. So newsworthy really helps in terms of getting coverage from news outlets, obviously, but also bloggers and anything that you can kind of get your hands on in terms of unpaid PR. And then shareability is all about social media. So the majority of our traffic, I think 70% of our traffic came from Facebook. And, I still have people that I meet today who say, oh, yeah, I remember, that campaign. I opened up my Facebook and there was literally over 100 people sharing that campaign on my Facebook page. And so it's, it kind of hit this incredible level of virality through Facebook as the primary shareable, sharing medium.
And just on the sharing and the PR behind it, any tips you can give us, Simon, in terms of people who would like a story to become newsworthy or want their product to get that kind of virality? You got picked up by a lot of news outlets. Any tips on what business owners can do about how to get that PR and get that kind of sharing going on? Some tangible steps.
I think PR is all about the hook. You're trying to create a message that gets someone going, oh my God, this is incredible, and it's news. Like it's something that is about what's happening right now, and no one's ever done it before. And so you have to figure out kind of what that hook really is. So with Shebeen, that was really easy because we're the second non-profit bar globally, with the first bar opening a few months before us, and the first in Australia. So that kind of hook was really straightforward. With Who Gives a Crap, there's obviously a relatively strong hook there, but we created an additional hook by the stunt itself. So, there's the product hook and then the stunt hook that we kind of pieced together in order to create something that is kind of newsworthy and exciting. When it comes to creating something that's shareable, there's obviously, again, kind of the concept itself, whether it's something that people would want to tell their friends about. But for us, the stunt was kind of crucial to creating that level of sharing that saw us kind of, get that huge viral spread.
And it was an unusual stunt. And in fact, Janine here has asked a question, how long were you on the toilet before you actually got the $50,000?
Yeah, so, we thought that it would kind of go one of two ways. It would either be 24 hours or it would go, potentially over a week, at which point I'd probably have to get a doctor to come and basically say, you can't, it's not safe and you need to stop. And it ended up taking 50 hours in total. So, a little bit over 2 days.
And I'm sure you stayed on the tour, because you're on the camera the whole time, I presume.
Yeah, well, I was expecting to be able to kind of get some rest overnight, but what happened was kind of traffic in Australia was really strong, and then we sort of, we thought that traffic in the US would be even stronger, and as a result, it would be, probably something like 32, 36 hours when everything would wrap up. But what happened was, for some reason, the campaign didn't resonate as well with the US audience compared to the Australian audience. And so our traffic actually died off overnight in the United States. But we ended up getting embedded onto our video, or the live feed getting embedded onto the front page of A Globo, which is the largest Latin American newspaper in the world. And so at any point in time, we had close to 200 people in Brazil looking at our live web feed through the wee hours of the Australian morning. And as a result, it was kind of, I guess, had to sort of make a call saying, well, we've got this level of virality globally. If I kind of, fall asleep on the ground next to the toilet, then it's just not going to make sense anymore. And so I kind of made the call that, needed to kind of stay there and push through. And that's what happened.
And did you fall asleep?
In hour 46 and 47, I got an hour of rest. Basically, it was 4 a.m. on the second night, so I'd been up for 46 hours straight with only a few hours sleep the night before, and I was hallucinating incredibly badly. I was sitting on TweetDeck, and if anyone's used TweetDeck, you'd be familiar with the huge number of kind of icons that sit across your screen from everyone's different, Twitter photos as part of their handle. And all of the photos turned into GIF images that were just constantly kind of moving and shaking on my computer screen. And I kept on hallucinating that I was inside quite a small room with a shelf next to me, and I'd go to lean on the shelf and fall over because there was, absolutely nothing next to me at all. And so I was on a chat forum called Reddit that some people might be familiar with, and basically there were a lot of people kept on saying to me, I'm genuinely concerned for your health, and were posting articles about someone who'd gone permanently insane from staying awake too long. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, when there was no one to talk to besides people on Reddit, I eventually kind of, and I was hallucinating quite badly, I eventually decided that it was probably a good idea to get some sleep, and turned around and fell asleep on the system for 2 hours.
Not very comfortable. And look, you needed a stunt double, Simon, clearly. And suffering for your art, it knows no ends. Well, that's great. It's a really interesting story, and I think, again, talking to you and not knowing the story behind it is actually really interesting to see the level of effort and engagement and sacrifice you went through to make that is quite. I guess my question is, was it worth it?
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. And I should also say that I was actually looking at an email earlier today that was from mid-May, and someone had emailed me saying, oh, could we catch up about this concept? And I said, I don't have time, like I'm out for the next month. And that kind of reminded me how intense the build-up period was. And it was literally kind of 4 weeks of non-stop, big, long days with 2 or 3 people working on the creation of the campaign, web dev teams, obviously the production crew for the clip. And so it's not, what we did took a lot of kind of work in the build-up in order to pull it off. So the stunt itself was, in some ways, kind of the easier part of the whole thing. Was it worth it? Definitely. We obviously got the capital, which enabled us to actually place the first order, which meant that we were in business. We got our first 1,300 customers on board, many of which have become incredible brand advocates for us moving forward, and are repeat customers who have bought our product on a continuous basis since that initial purchase. And obviously, it was an incredible kind of brand exercise for us. But possibly most importantly, we got to, if people are familiar with kind of startups and particularly lean theory, we got to test a lot of the key assumptions of our business model. So we got to test whether we were going to be more successful in the US market versus the Australian market, for example, as well as how people responded to our name, which was something that we'd been uncertain about up until that point. So there was, a lot of kind of additional value that came out of it as opposed to the pure kind of capital side of things and some of the more obvious value. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, moving on now to some more generic entrepreneurial pieces of advice, Simon. If somebody was looking to start up an online business, and I guess this was originally an online business, what tips would you give to people in terms of getting that up and running?
I guess it sort of depends, what business you're doing, but I think the most important thing is to basically figure out whether there's enough demand for your product in order for it to be validated, but also, whatever kind of the core assumptions are, you need to make sure that you're right before you invest too much time and money in it. So for us, we needed to test whether people would actually buy toilet paper online, which obviously the campaign showed us there was some scope to do that. We also needed to test whether people believed in a product that was using 50% of its profits to build toilets in the developing world, and whether they'd make a brand switch over from whatever products they were buying at the moment to that. And so again, the campaign was really great in terms of helping us to figure that out. So the first step is really just trying to understand what the core assumptions are around your business model, and then working out how you can test each of those assumptions individually to make sure that you're correct. Because if you've got a business that is about creating a business card made out of wood instead of paper, for example, you need to actually test whether, one, someone would first of all buy it, two, whether they'd actually use it, three, maybe it gets used in a different way to what you'd expect. And so by physically getting into the market and putting it out there and testing each of those assumptions, you can start to see whether your business model is something that will be successful, and if it isn't, then you can start adjusting it to make sure that what you end up putting into the marketplace will be successful in the longer term. So
you're of the mindset, as many entrepreneurs that I've interviewed are, which is just start. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yeah, definitely, but just start as quickly and cheaply as possible. It's one thing to say, get started, but it's another thing to throw $100,000 at something before you have any idea whether it's something that will actually make sense.
You do some interesting things with your packaging, Simon. Would you like to elaborate on what you do when people receive the pack, the toilet paper? Because I think that's quite interesting, and it might be useful for people to think, well, how, if I send out packages via online, what can I do to make my package more interesting upon arrival?
So one of when we started when we had the money in the bank and started doing all of our design, we were starting to think about what, if the product was going to be successful on an ongoing basis, what one would drive growth, but two, if we weren't in supermarkets straight away, what we could do in order to enhance the consumer experience based on a regular supermarket product. And we realized that one of the strengths that we had was that we could package each of our roles individually. And if we did that, then we had this, amazing kind of fun packaging medium that we could work with in order to create something that provided quite a unique and different product to what you get in the supermarket shelf. And so each of our roles are individually wrapped. I've actually got some next to me, which is pretty normal. Each of our roles are individually wrapped, and there's 5 different packaging designs. So it means that, when you get something kind of in your bathroom and it's sitting next to your toilet, instead of it just looking like an ugly, regular old toilet roll, you've got something that's kind of much more interesting, but probably most importantly, again, something that is shareable. It's something that people physically wanted to tell their friends about and got excited about. And so when we sent out all of our initial orders, we started to see that people were basically just posting pictures of our product onto Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our traffic just doubled day on day on day. We had this backstop of about 2 months of product to get us through until we did our next product reorder, and all of that 2 months of product sold out in the first 5 days. So we created a product that had a physical kind of viral element to it, as well as the initial kind of digital viral element that was a lot of fun.
Cool. I'd just like to invite everyone who's on the call today to type in some questions if you'd like. Simon's right here, and if you'd like some specific answers to specific questions, now's your time to start typing in some of those. So, Simon, while people might be thinking about that, what's for those who haven't got a website yet, or they have just started up a website, any thoughts on how people can best drive traffic to their site?
It depends kind of what you're trying to do. So, when we started out, we basically, we before we even did this crowdfunding campaign, we wanted to test whether people would buy toilet paper online. And so we went to the supermarket and we bought 400 rolls of toilet paper. We found some boxes that were the approximate size that we'd use in the future, and started sending out or advertising toilet paper online at a price point that we thought was where we kind of fit in the market to see whether people would actually purchase it. And we found early on that obviously no one knew about our site, and we didn't want to tell our friends about it because then we'd get really biased responses, because people would be like, oh, I want to support Simon or Jehan or Danny in helping them to kind of get their product to market, so I'll just buy this toilet paper. And so we used basically Facebook advertising and Google AdWords to drive traffic to our site to test some of those core assumptions. Now we're in a position where we've obviously got an initial customer base who are excited about what we're doing, and so when we send our product out to them, we encourage them to share it via social media. So we still get a lot of social media driven traffic, which is great. And then the third thing is basically PR. We're trying to always kind of develop free PR, whether it's in print, through newspapers, on television, in blogs, or whatever kind of we can access. And because we're online, we find that the best conversion rates tend to come from PR that's online as well. So if something goes into a newspaper and it's not on the news website, then the conversion rate's relatively low. Whereas if we end up with an online article, even if it's not in print, we can often get a much higher conversion rate and greater number of sales from that. So we basically use all of the tools that we have available to us, but we also track the conversions that come through those to figure out which are the more successful channels in order to drive traffic to our site.
A question has come from a woman called Inara Beecher from Medicare Local, and you might have already touched on this, Simon. But I'll put it out there anyway. Her question is, when setting up a social business, do you need to begin with a concrete idea of a product or service? And to some extent, you've actually said that. How do you progress in social business when you have a desire to give consumers the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is, but you're not sure what your product or service is yet? So you've got the intention to do something, but you don't quite know how you're going to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we just think about what we do as close as possible to regular business, because what we're basically trying to do is drive sales, and the more sales we can drive, the more impact that we can create. And so I guess, I'd answer this question the same way that if someone said, I'm really interested in business, but I don't know what my product is yet. I haven't found my wooden business card that I want to focus on. Go and get some experience working for someone who's got a great concept that's as close as possible to to what you're interested in, and learn from them, because entrepreneurship is not about being in the right place at the right time and getting lucky. It's something that can be learnt and can be taught, and the best way to do that's on the job. So find someone who is doing something that you believe in, and go and work with them and help. Use that to help you figure out kind of what you want to do. And I've met a lot of people who have said, they're very successful entrepreneurs, but they are the first to admit that they're not good at coming up with the initial idea or insight. They're instead very good at taking something that someone else has come up with, and then say putting it into a new market or helping them grow it from a $2 million company to a $50 million company. And so you don't necessarily have to have the initial idea in order to be involved and get that right.
There's just out of interest, a lot of businesses I know, and not so much in the online space, but just in, they often go to, I know how I got my business, the School of Copywriting, off the ground was I ran a short course. And I wanted to test to see whether there was a demand for this kind of training before I invested, big sums in websites and manuals and research and all that sort of stuff. So if you feel that there's a potential idea that you have, why not approach the CAEs or the short course departments at local TAFEs and what have you, and run it as a short course and see what kind of demand you get. If no one enrolls, you're going to be struggling. But as I was sold out within a few days of advertising a course, and suddenly I realized, wow, there's a real demand for the training of copywriters. The other thing which Simon did, which I thought was really interesting, it's a really clever way to do it, is AdWords. And I know a lot of people don't go on AdWords for a variety of reasons, but I know of entrepreneurs who've actually don't have a business, they don't have a product or a service, but they've got an idea. So they write a series of AdWords, and based on what kind of traffic they can generate through those AdWords, they determine whether they're actually going to put the business up and get it running. So they send them to a landing page, and the landing page might have some information on it, but it's not necessarily committing anyone to buying anything. It's just saying, if you're interested in this topic, please let us know and we'll get back to you. So it's just a cheap way of working out, does your idea have any traction with the community? So any thoughts on that, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, that's the very first thing that we did was we set up a launch page on our site with a sign-up for more information, and it meant that we could see, if we had 1,000 people coming through our site, we could see what the conversion rate to sign-ups were, and that helped us to gauge the level of interest that was out there for what we were doing. So yeah, there's lots and lots of kind of quick, cheap ways to do that. I know one of my friends who now runs a very successful company in New York that's now global. The first thing that he did was he said, well, how can we basically test the core assumption that people are interested in what we've got to offer them for under $2,000 and gain 5,000 website signups? Because if we can't get 5,000 people to sign up to what we've got to offer them, then we've got no hope in hell of becoming a $100 million company in the next few years, which is what he was interested in doing. So that was kind of what they set themselves as the initial kind of benchmarks to ensure there was enough demand there for their product.
So we've got a couple of questions coming through. One's from Stephen. Hi, Simon. I like the idea of setting up an online business, but I'm not a web expert. Should I take a course in web design or engage an expert?
Have you still got me there? I've just got a reconnection issue.
I can hear your voice perfectly, and we can see you now as well.
Great. My story's kind of funny. I actually did a year and a half of a computer science degree and then realized that I didn't really like computer science very much. And so I technically have a very good technical background, but the truth is that I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to web and to coding. So we outsource absolutely everything, but outsourcing can range from getting a web dev firm who will charge you anywhere from $2,000 to $100,000 to develop a website, through to using some of the super smart platforms that already exist online. So at the moment we run our online store through Shopify's platform, which basically just has a monthly fee and then a per order fee attached to it. And then you can reskin the classic Shopify store themes for anything from a free theme through to $150 to get it to look like a custom website. And so when you're getting started out, you want to test something as quickly and cheaply as possible, and you can get an online store set up in literally an hour if you've got an existing PayPal account. So it's very, very, easy to do without requiring the relatively expensive kind of assistance that comes with that. There's a new service that has been around for a year now as well called Twiki, Twiki.com. that is run by an amazing guy out of Melbourne who has now just opened up a San Francisco office as well. And Tweaky basically is like the the online resource for people who are trying to do things quickly and easily and cheaply without having the huge amount of tech experience necessary to make changes to their site. So you can jump on there. If you need to, for example, add a bunch of logos to the bottom of every single page of your website and you're not sure how to do that, Tweaky will set it up as a single tweak, which I think costs about $40, and then they'll get one of their experts to go in there and insert the necessary code to make that appear on every page of your site. So instead of then having to go to your web dev guys who will charge you 3 hours of work because that's what their minimum is, you can get it done very quickly and cheaply through Tweaky.
Very cool. So that's outsourcing, is it really? Is that outsourcing of web updates?
Yeah, exactly. And it means, generally if something goes wrong, then you've got a direct point of contact with the developer who's working on it. It's a very, beautifully well-managed system. And it's they work out of the same office as 99 Designs here in Collingwood in Melbourne, who are another great outsourcing resource for people who are just starting out, because you can get all of your kind of logos and everything designed by running what's called a competition where you set a particular monetary prize, and then you write a brief for what you'd like, and then designers can submit concepts to you that then you select from and award the prize money to the person whose design you've decided that you'd like to use. So yeah, it's all about outsourcing in those early stages, because all you're trying to do is figure out whether there's a market for what you're trying to sell, and if there isn't, then you're trying to adjust to figure out what people are actually interested in, how to make what you're doing successful. Excellent.
Oh, good. And now you're on the line, which is fantastic. So, and thank you, Simon, for that. Great. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of resources that you know of, Simon. It'd be great just to tap your brain. I have a question from Joan. It's about GST. Do you only charge GST to buyers in Australia?
Yeah. And all of this stuff, all that we do, because everything that you do as with a new business is pretty much just starting out for the first time. So you're trying to figure everything out as quickly as you can without having to spend, time or money on it. So Google just becomes your best friend. All of these questions, if you could literally kind of cut and paste into Google and it would spit the answer out for you. But yeah, GST, only to Australian customers, because it's something that's only charged within products that are sold within Australia. And we had to figure out whether GST was charged on toilet paper, because it's we weren't sure if it was something that was an item that was deemed to be a necessity item like food. Unfortunately, it isn't. So you do have to pay GST on toilet paper.
Cool. And one question from Les, and we'll wrap up. We've got just a few minutes to go. Les asked, I have an invention and also an international touring wine and scenic touring idea, which sounds interesting, but don't know where to start to develop it. How can I progress these ideas without them being stolen?
I think, getting things stolen is actually something that doesn't happen very often, because Who Gives a Crap's a great example, where it took us an incredibly long time to actually develop the product and get it to market in a way that we were happy with it. And for someone to invest that amount of time and money into an idea that you've already had means that, they're potentially pathologically crazy if they think that that's, a worthwhile use of what they're doing. I think what we found is that it's best just to talk about what you're doing and tell people about it, because you find out that there's always countless people who can help you, who can solve problems that you didn't even know that you had, or introduce you to people who can. So it's always about kind of talking about what you're doing, and that's how you kind of build this amazing network of people that can help you to take it to where it needs to go. So I wouldn't, don't hold ideas close to your heart unless there's competitors out there who can move on them quickly because they're already in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think, I've been interviewing entrepreneurs for the TV show Secrets of Aussie Online Entrepreneurs, and consistently across the board, Simon and Les, they've all said it's by talking to other people, by running the idea by your friends, by brainstorming it, by just asking people, would you be interested in this? They've been able to fine-tune their idea to the point where they actually have a business idea. I think without that discussion, without that input, without that, massaging it, it's very hard to create a business. And so I agree with Simon not to protect it or, shelter it, but actually get it out there. And ideas are a dime a dozen, but implementation is the key. And just on that note, we will wrap up. And I just wanted to let everybody know that Simon will actually be appearing at an event that I'm running in conjunction with the Glen Ira Council on October 29th called Secrets of Aussie Online Entrepreneurs. So we've actually got a TV show that's airing on the Fairfax network very soon. We're looking to put it onto the mass market in TV, but we're doing stage events as well to match that. So October 29th, we'll tell you more about that. But on August 28th, we actually have 5 entrepreneurs, not unlike Simon, who've all done amazing things off their own bat, have a passion, decided they want to pursue it. So if you want to have your questions answered, the things that you've been asking today, but actually speak to the entrepreneurs and hear them speak and get to meet them up close and personal at the small table sessions that we'll be having, you're more than welcome to come along. And if you'd like to tick the box that you get on the exit survey, we'll keep you posted because these events are selling out very quickly, and we'll be having many more of them because our mission is to shine the light on what some Aussie online entrepreneurs like Simon are doing and share the knowledge so that other people can be inspired to follow their passions as well. So on that note, I'd just like to thank you, Simon, so much for your generosity for being here today and also your generosity in sharing your knowledge and the way that you've built these incredible businesses, and you've got an incredible humanitarian streak within you, which is a beautiful thing to see in business. And I do think you are leading the way in the way that business has to go. It can't keep going the way it's been going to some degree. So it's really nice to see this new wave of entrepreneurs coming through who do have the planet and other people at the core of their business. So thanks, Simon.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think you're exactly right. So it's an exciting time to be playing in the space.
Yep, great. And thank you, Sarah, and thank you to Redback for your beautiful system, and everything works so beautifully. Really appreciate your support. We look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. So have a lovely day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Bernadette. And thank you also, Simon. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's very inspirational webinar. On behalf of Redback, I'd like to thank our 2 very special guests. And as discussed, as mentioned, by Bernadette, please feel free to complete the exit survey at the end of the webinar once we close it off. And we'll then send you a recording of today's session so you can share it with other people and help spread the word about some fascinating things that are happening out there in the world. If you want any more information, either from Simon, either from Bernadette about her online entrepreneurs series, or either from Redback on webinars, please feel free to let us know. And Les, that box is located in the exit survey, which will now redirect you to. So thanks again, everyone, once again, and we do hope to see you at future webinars. Enjoy the rest of your day.